I would like to thank the VFW for the opportunity to be here this weekend, and especially my home post, number 6209, as well as my mom, who served 8 years in the 4005 U.S. Army Hospital. It is such an honor to be here. As a quilter, like my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother before me, I see America as a patchwork quilt, following the pattern that the Founding Fathers so carefully envisioned. Its sturdy fabric was woven from the beliefs of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like a quilt, America began with 13 colonies. Each was an individual block stitched together under the Constitution. Over time, the colors of our quilt have varied, and our pattern has been modified and adapted. The framers envisioned a government that would protect individual rights and limits its own power. But over time, this has changed. The original quilt design was to be light and adaptable. Too much power has made our quilt stiff and cumbersome. Every new law, regulation, and mandate is a new layer on the quilt that restricts our freedoms, making it harder for individuals and states to exercise their rights as intended. Veterans didn't fight for the government, they fought for the rights of the people to make their own choices. To restore the forefathers' original vision, some layers need to be lightened, allowing the fabric of liberty to shine through once more. Freedom is a huge requirement of every human being. With freedom comes responsibility, declared Eleanor Roosevelt. The Founding Fathers believed that liberty should be knitted with a sense of duty, with each citizen taking responsibility for their actions while enjoying the freedom to pursue their dreams. Without the threads of personal accountability, the quilt of freedom unravels, becoming frail and chaotic. An example of this is how we, as U.S. citizens, exercise our right to vote. Voting is more than a right, it is a responsibility and privilege. Despite more Americans having the right to vote, according to Pew Research, only about 66% of the voting eligible population turned out for the 2020 presidential election. This issue is less about voter suppression and more about the lack of turnout, showing that many Americans don't take responsibility for their role in our democracy. Military service is another way to show duty. Though numbers over the years have decreased, we still have citizens choosing to serve and protect our Constitution without the use of a draft for our armed forces. And in the end, embracing our responsibilities as citizens not only strengthens the fabric of our democracy, but also ensures that the promise of freedom in our quilt remains vibrant and enduring for generations to come. Together we stand, divided we fall, was my mother's platoon motto in basic training. The idea of standing together is what the Founding Fathers had in mind when they talked about us being one nation under God. With division, our quilt becomes thin and worn, tearing under pressure. But with unity as a thread, each unique piece remains securely connected, preventing our nation from unraveling. When Americans come together displaying patriotism during holidays such as Independence Day, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day, our bonds are strengthened. During tragic events like the Texas Panhandle wildfires or the recent hurricanes in Florida and the Carolinas, when Americans join forces to help one another, we move beyond individuality and stand together as one. This tight stitching makes the quilt strong and resilient, able to withstand challenges while celebrating the distinct colors and patterns of every piece. Though we have strayed from our forefathers' original pattern, the quilt of America is still a work of art. We need to appreciate the patterns and colors of previous blocks and study them to remember the positive aspects and strengthen what we've created. While some parts of our past are unattractive, such as slavery and segregation, we should keep those elements in mind to avoid repeating them. Together we stand, divided we fall. That's not just a military motto, that is America. If we want to honor the sacrifices of those who came before us, we must work towards an American quilt that truly reflects the original pattern our forefathers drafted. While I am too young to vote in the upcoming election, I will be prepared with knowledge and exercise civic responsibility in 2028. When I see a veteran, I will offer more than an empty thank you, but rather a heartfelt appreciation for their service. How will you prevent America's quilt from being overlayered and keep the edges from fraying? What steps are you willing to take to strengthen the patriotic fabric of our nation?